if something doesn't look right, or the customer has a question or wants something changed, change it. Period. There's no, by having the power, not have to say, well, I need to go ask Chris.
Mm.
A, that makes the customer know that he's valued. B, he's going to tell the people, the customer is. Hey, everyone. Welcome back. Chris G here, Hard Hat the CEO. Got Kevin here. We're going to have a little podcast today, learn about some things for contractors and for anything else if you have your own business, and talk about things. So, Kevin, I'm glad you're here. Been another week.
Yeah.
You been doing good?
I've been some would say living the dream. That's what I say to you every time we log on. How about
That's
you?
right.
What's going on?
Doing good. Kind of cold here, but got my sweatshirt on today, but that's okay.
Yeah. It's chilly here. It's chilly here. All right, let's get into it because
Sure.
our goal is
right. Yeah.
Our goal is always to add value. So last week we talked about a lot of different stuff. We kind of jumped all over the place, little idea of who you are and what you wish you knew at the beginning and all that stuff. But obviously, if you're going to be successful and you're going to be successful delegating, you have to at some point learn how to run a team effectively.
Sure.
It helps. So today I was thinking we could do the top 5 ways to increase employee morale.
All right.
We'll go through your top 5. We can dive into each one, but what would you say the number one way to increase or improve employee morale would be?
Well, Kevin and I talk a lot about communication. Communication is big, but I think in this case, I think I'll break it down. So I guess number one would be explanation. A lot of people want to understand. I think I talked about it last week, but explain what's going on. Teach or train. And training could be even part of the morale part. But as long as people understand, they're usually willing to help. And I think training, explaining it to them, moving forward, showing them why. Most people just want to know why. So explanation as part of communication is key to keep morale up. And the funny part is that some people who don't like to ask why will ask somebody else. They won't ask you, they'll ask their peer. And that peer loves to know. And he feels like he's empowering them because he knows the answer and he's telling them, explaining it to them. It's kind of like I mentioned the grapevine. You find the right person and tell them, and they're going to tell everybody. So also, if you have a working foreman in place that are in charge of others, that way you don't have to go, depending on how big you are as a company, you can tell your working foreman. It's like a trickle down effect. So I've had, so it's very effective there.
What's something that you communicate that is just regular communication now that at the beginning maybe you didn't communicate? Do you have any examples?
Cash flow, meaning invoicing. They didn't understand. It's like, hey, we need to invoice this. Okay, well, I need some information first before I can invoice it. Like, are you done? That would be one thing. Are you done with the job? I don't want to invoice prematurely. Secondly, are they happy? And, well, why is that? Well, we don't want to think about it being treated your way you want to be treated. And I tell them, it's like, hey, would you be happy paying something that you weren't happy with? Ask them. What'd they say? And they know that I'm going to be asking these questions. So they are going to get the information, not have to ask them anymore. And they're just telling me, hey, they're very happy. Here's what they did. Oh, they're going to refer us on, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, that's great news. Some of those things you don't have to do anymore. But if people know that you're going to be asking it, so you have to be, as a business owner or you have to be consistent in asking those same questions that you want repeated. So consistency there that I don't have to ask anymore. Scheduling. Did you get the materials ordered? No, I forgot. Like, okay, well, let's find a system in place that you don't forget next time. Like, okay. So create the little system, from a contractor point of view, you don't want to show up no materials being there, for example.
Yeah, it's hard to build with nothing.
That's right.
I imagine. I haven't done much building in my day, but I imagine you need materials.
You gotta have some stuff there. Yeah,
it helps.
I guess number 2 is, and this goes to communication too. A lot of this stuff is about communication, but I guess it's the type of communication, and that's the financials. I don't get down into details of stuff. I read a book on about Southwest Airlines, and this is where I got the idea that they went through every month and told their people how they were doing. You know, the big picture thing. So I took it and I said, okay, how can we use it for us? So we simplified an income statement, basically. And if you don't know what income statement is, basically it's your income and your expenses and your profit at the bottom. And that's a big picture of it. But we broke it down on the expense part, that we broke it down to things that people were in charge of. So if you have a working foreman, you know, he's in charge of overtime, or if there is any overtime, keeping overtime low. And, you know, we had it broken down to different expenses that were important to the people that they can affect. And you can compare that even to the budget. Here's what we thought we were going to be, and that happens. You know, you get a lot of morale there that, you know, they find themselves that important to be explained to.
Mm.
And you got to be careful there. Some people are bored with that type of stuff, so you don't have to get down into nitty gritty, but give them a big picture where you're at. Most people can understand that. Keep the morale up. They understand that, hey, I'm part of a team, I can affect those numbers, and kind of teaching them how to do that.
Yeah, and I think it also makes you feel like you're part of the bigger, you're not just a number. You're not just somebody that shows up and works. You're part of the bigger picture. You're part of the movement. You're part of the mission.
Actually, yes. The third, and this actually goes back to the income statement too. You can put it on here. I believe in profit sharing. You hear I've had a lot of friends growing up who work for contractors and so forth, and they're always aggravated about, well, I help them make this much money and I don't get anything back. You know, they don't appreciate me. And I think morale is important. This goes with any company, in my opinion, that profit sharing is important, and that would be part of the income statement, because from a company point of view, we take that profit out and you put it in a little escrow account, basically, and that grows. And if they can see that growing once a month, along with those financials, income, that's important, and that helps build morale too. Kind of gives them something to look forward to. I've had this debate: do you do it quarterly or annually? And I think it depends on the company and how your cash flow runs, because some are very cyclical. Like in contractors, you know, the winter months slow down, depending on what state you're in, compared to I don't know, something that's more specific, like grocery stores or something that's always going, Walmarts and stuff like that, you know, that are more consistent on the sales side. There was this is a morale thing too, and someone explained this to me based on quarterly, how important that is. And I've heard people doing it, and I recommend quarterly if you can afford it or know how to do it, because what happens is people get an extra pay. And it's not about the money necessarily, Kevin. It's more about just the morale boost. You know, I get an extra money that I wasn't expecting. It's a bonus.
Mm.
All right. So it goes up. So your morale comes up, and productivity increases too. Well, over time, that productivity goes off because the bonuses wore off. And that happens actually about every 3-4 months. So by the time you get down here on productivity, boom, here comes another bonus, and you're back up again. So if you can figure out a way to do it quarterly, I think you'll be better off in the long run. And it creates peer pressure to some extent. Peer pressure is important. Peer pressure can be bad, peer pressure can be good. So morale is when your other guys realize that somebody's not picking up their weight. That's affecting their pay or their bonus. Where everybody works together, creates that team. And that's morale, in my opinion. That's how to keep it all good and healthy, put it that way.
Is there, I guess, obviously you don't have to go into super details, but what are you looking at in order to figure out whether or not you can actually do profit sharing? Like, what has to happen financially?
You need to budget for it. First thing, you need to look at it. I mean, you need to make profit. That's important. And maybe don't do that right away. You know, get those financials out there and help other people figure out what's going on. If you have a foreman, or let's say you don't have a foreman, let's say you are the foreman yourself and you're not that big yet, but you have people working with you, and you try to identify what is going on. You know, that bookkeeper I talked about, or if you have a bookkeeper, or if you have an accountant, or if you just like the numbers yourself, look at it and figure out, okay, compare actual jobs to a budget if you want to break it down real small, like if you're building a building or I'm building a house for somebody, and I got my costs broken down by plumbing, electrical, by service, put it that way, and look at it and see where you made. Did you make the profit you thought you were going to make on that particular part of it? Yes or no, and why not? Did you forget something, or you got the wrong person doing the job? Whatever it is, kind of budget that. You got to make profit first before you can share it. So look at it. Then at the simplicity wise, you get down to a percentage at the end of the month. But your profit sharing is based on the month usually, and you kind of put it in a little kitty and put it aside. So you don't make a savings account if you want to, and that way you're not spending it. And it's not yours anymore. You've given it to your people. But that's important too, that let's say you don't make money the second month. You lose a little bit. Well, that comes out of your profit sharing.
Mm.
So you don't put money aside, or you calculate the bonus based on that quarter. That's important. And people need to understand that. And you ask them why, and that's actually going to come up here in my next number 4 here on how to keep people motivated or morale high. You ask people, ask their opinions. That's the number 4 thing. Just what's going on? You don't have to be the superhero every time. You are the leader, and leaders lead, and leaders lead by example and by asking questions. So find out. It's like, hey, what happened on his job? What do we do differently? It could be as easy as buying a tool. And if we had this one tool that cost $300, but would have saved you hours, buy the damn tool.
Mm.
So, and that's a good example too. If you bought a tool for this quarter and that didn't make you have profit, but when you had those financials, you show it on there. Hey, we bought this tool. Now, we didn't make any money this month because I had to take it out of the cost of the job. But you and I know, team, that next time we need this tool, we've got it, and we're going to make that profit up. And, it's just a building thing.
Mm.
I hope you're making profit every month, but sometimes, be honest with you, that doesn't happen, unfortunately. But it is what it is.
Do you, how well do you know what motivates the team in terms of external life goals?
You ask them.
Is that something you do often?
I do it once a year. I thought about doing it more often, but it becomes I think it becomes more of a wish fest, I guess. It's not, I think it's important that definitely important what drives your people. It's not always money. It could be vacation, it could be whatever. I think you have an idea. And I think if you do it annually, because things change. One guy, I got an employee who, when he started with me, he's just a really good worker, didn't have a family. And lo and behold, he got married. That changes everything. And you guys out there, if you listen to me, you know what I'm talking about. But your priorities change. I've got other guys have, I had ladies who have children, and their priorities change. So knowing how their priorities changed, not everybody can be managed the same. And I think that's important too, that I don't want to say tricks or trigger, but you know how to handle those people. Now, there's some things I think needs to happen no matter what, is that if you're going to reprimand someone, you do it the way you want to be reprimanded, alone in private. Don't do it in front of other people. I actually worked for a company that they chewed on you right in front of everybody, whether it be me or somebody else, and you feel bad. And it's like, gosh, dang, it wasn't necessary. Common sense things are also things that help raise the, you wanted 5, but I'm thinking of all these other ones that are just,
well, we could start with 5. If we end up with 55, yeah. That's okay.
Well, treat people the way you want to be treated.
Yeah.
That's the golden rule, that comes down to it, that if it don't make sense to you, or you wouldn't want it to be done to you, then how would you want it to be done and make it happen that way? But going back to that number 4, opinions, ask their opinion. Ask people's opinion, get the input, listen to them, acknowledge, and sometimes just tell them, here's why I'm not going to do that. Because there's things that they might not understood either, that makes sense to me. Well, it does make sense, but you're not thinking about so and so, or you're not thinking about what happens to the income statement, or So
Yeah. Okay. All right. What's number 5?
number 5. This is actually, I don't mean to be this is probably the most important, and I don't mean that they're all important communication wise, but empowerment. It's important to you because you're freeing up your time and you're giving somebody else the ability to do something. It's important to them to know that you trust them. It's important to know that they can make a decision and not fear from being in trouble. I tell all my managers when I start, and actually I told my virtual assistants, I've told other people, I want you to make a decision. Now, if I feel strongly about it, I'll tell them how I want the decision made. But if it's just something simple, you know, if I don't like how you're going to do it, I'm going to accept what your decision was. I'll explain how I want it done next time. And that's, it depends on the decision. Don't get me wrong. Giving people money to spend, for example, on the customer service side, there used to be, Walmart used to do it, and I assume they still do. But as long as you come in, they're going to swap out something. Satisfaction, 100% guaranteed satisfaction, or something to that effect. And they just, if it came in, you swapped it out. It was that simple, or their money back, or whatever it was. And that those people at that register did not have to go ask somebody. They just knew that was going to happen. So whatever it is, empower your people, whether it's customer service wise. I told my son-in-law, for example, if something doesn't look right, or the customer has a question or wants something changed, change it. Period. There's no, by having the power, not have to say, well, I need to go ask Chris. A, that makes the customer know that he's valued. B, he's going to tell the people, the customer is. Chris knows that he has the ability to do that. His name's Chris too, sorry. I'm big Chris and he's little Chris. Little Chris knows that he can make that decision and doesn't have to go get okay from somebody. And that means a lot of people, empowerment. A lot of people don't like to be micromanaged. Long ago, I took over, when I was in corporate, I took over a position and I was running a $22 million company and I was in charge of 90% of the budget. I had a bunch of people under me and one manager I had. He'd been there a long, long time. We're good friends today, but I went to his office one day and he said, Chris, I like you. I said, well, that's good. I want you to like me. I said, but what caused you to say that? I mean, you just don't come in and say that. He goes, because you don't keep your thumb on me. I said, Kenny? Kenny, I said, I don't have time to keep my thumb on you. You get paid to do your job, you do your job. And if we have to talk about it, we can. But you have a question, I'm here, my door's open. But you know what your responsibilities are. And that's important too, talk about all this communication. So for the empowerment, they need to know their responsibilities, that you're holding them, not only you're giving the power to do their job, but you're also giving the power to fix their job, and you know what you're responsible for. We talked about KPIs earlier, that you have some KPIs. Well, depending on how big your organization is, your working foreman, your managers have to have KPIs too. And they're responsible for keeping them where they need to be. But I think empowerment's a good one. Just it's almost a sense of pride.
Yeah, it's not, it makes everything bigger than just the job. You're part of something bigger. And I think when you really appreciate that, I think it helps it grow. Let's do it. All right. I have a quick question.
Okay.
Obviously, I think part of morale is hiring the right people.
Yep.
It takes one apple to spoil the whole batch. So what are a couple things that you're looking for when you're bringing someone on?
It depends on your company. I have had it where I've let other people interview them. So I get more than one opinion. Like, hey, you got to work with this guy or person. You go talk to him, see what you think. And if you don't like them, then we're not going to do it. Sometimes I always do a probationary period, like 90 days or something like that. Like, hey, we're going to try this out. We want to make sure that's not, and you play it up. That this is also, it's not only important that you like us, that we have to like you. It goes both ways. If you're not happy, then we don't want you to stay either. But explanation, checking them out. I didn't do this. I have started, but I didn't always. As a personality test you can take.
Hmm.
And, I talked about bookkeepers already. Well, you want a bookkeeper's personality when you hire them. So have them take a test. There's free ones online. They can check it out, get your personality. If you are looking for an accountant, for example, you don't want what they call them a squiggly line, somebody who's very disorganized. You don't want them. That's pretty simple. If you're looking for a salesman, you don't want an accountant type who's very reserved and, a lot of different things. To be honest with you, Kevin, I hate hiring. It's one, in my opinion, it's one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah.
I think the testing makes it a lot easier now. At least I have an idea what I'm looking for. I made some mistakes hiring along the way. I've had some good things hiring. I've hired a lot of good people too.
Mm.
Just, you don't know. I think the important thing is recognize that you made a mistake and let that person go. And that's not always easy. Now, I'm not talking about layoffs. I'm not really talking about firing. It's like, hey, this isn't working out. And I'll give you a referral. I'll do whatever I need. But we're just not jiving. Be honest with the person. And don't burn any bridges. Now, sometimes you're going to burn bridges just because of the thought. Here's what I've done before too. If I hired a person and they've done nothing but they just don't fit, and I know it's my fault, I will give them a severance package of some sort.
Mm.
And that could be a week's pay, a 2 weeks pay. I've done it that way. It depends on what level they're at. That's when they don't deserve to go. Don't get me wrong. So if it's somebody comes on and they're just not right and they're not getting along with anybody and it's just cut ties, go. If it's one of those things that just don't fit your team and you made a mistake and you made the mistake, they didn't do anything wrong technically, help them out. They got a family. They're going to find somebody out. And they're going to have to go find someone. You're going to have to find somebody too. So from a financial point of view, you're not going to hire anybody for 2 weeks. Give them a 2-week severance. Say, hey, go find another job.
Is there anything we didn't talk about today that we should have before we get out of here?
Yeah. Picnics. I'm not a big picnic guy. I mean, I enjoy them, and I say picnics, and that's kind of a joke, but getting your family involved, and that's kind of when you're a smaller company, that can happen. I think when you get bigger, those don't turn out as well.
Mm.
It's just big, it's a lot of fun. People come and bring the kids and so forth, and family outings. I think, and I finally got away from the picnic side because I think bringing family in makes it harder because they almost feel like they have to talk. Now, if you're already friends and everything, that's one thing, but you get to a size where you just want to have Employee Appreciation Day, in my opinion, and let them know that they're appreciated. Taking them to lunch or whatever it is that however you want to do it, but I like cooking meat, so I like smoking whole hogs. We did that one time. But, just feed someone. I'm big on eating, as you can tell, probably. But, we've just barbecued one day. I'm going to barbecue. You guys, when it's lunchtime, come over here, eat, and we'll take an extra 30-minute lunch just to chat. And all the guys are already together, or ladies, gals. And I guess just break bread.
Mm.
But let them know that, it's all not always about work. So,
I remember one of the companies I worked for, they wanted me to come in on like a Saturday for, I was like, the last thing I want to do is go to the building on Saturday.
That's what I finally got through. I was in corporate. It's like, you don't even want to come in on Saturday.
Right.
Let's do an Employee Appreciation Day. We'll cook, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Extra little lunchtime. And they appreciated that so much more than having to drag their. No, those people that love bringing the kids, don't get me wrong. Yeah. But for the most part, it's a hard thing to do.
Yeah. I found that. You're getting free food and you can play bag toss. Look, I have free food at home.
Yeah.
I can play bag toss at home. I don't want to come in on Saturday. But that was me. I didn't like my company very much. So.
Well, I love my company. It's just Saturdays are Saturdays.
Saturdays are Saturdays.
And that's just the way it is. So we went to a employee appreciation day event, and that seemed to be so much better.
Right on. Right on. All right. All right. Take us out of here, my friend.
All right. So this is a Hard Hat CEO podcast. Thank you, Kevin, for joining us. This is Chris Gilman. And if you would like to catch us, go to YouTube or Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Get a hold of Chris Gilman, and we can do a little conversation if you'd like through a calendar appointment. Appreciate your time today, and we will catch you next week. Bye-bye.